Pearce.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Speaker. May I begin by congratulating our Speaker proper on his re-election. His position is one of honour and he does it justice. Indeed, to everyone in this place, congratulations. We're all here today because of the faith our constituents have placed in us, and I wish everyone right across the chamber all the very best for the 46th Parliament. Mr Deputy Speaker, I acknowledge and I congratulate the appointment of His Excellency General the Honourable David Hurley, AC DSC, as our 27th Governor-General to Australia. Furthermore, I note the exemplary work of his predecessor, General Sir Peter Cosgrove, AKMC. It was during my 20-year service within the Australian Regular Army that I had the privilege of serving under both these distinguished senior officers. I know I'm just one of the many that's benefited from the guidance and the leadership of both generals, and that they delivered this to a nation through our Defence Force. In fact, I served under General Cosgrove during Operation Interfet in East Timor, where my electronic warfare squadron was deployed to the border between Indonesia and East Timor. I have many enduring memories of his leadership, but one stands out. I recall General Cosgrove addressing a meeting one day of senior officers and staff, which ended up in him banging his hand on the table. He said in desperation, "I'm sick of you people telling me why I can't do things. I need you to start telling me how I can." I received that message loud and clear. And I think that's a message that will stand me in good stead as I represent the electorate of Braddon in this role. Mr Deputy Speaker, I reflect on my service in the Army and I feel many emotions. Above all, I am privileged to have drawn inspiration from many fine leaders. I've had the enormous privilege of serving alongside literally thousands of Australia's most remarkable young men and women. As a Sergeant Major of my unit, I was responsible for the welfare of the diggers. That was my job. I knew those soldiers like I knew my own family. I knew their partners, I knew their kids, I knew their dreams. I was the keeper of the standards, the enforcer of the military discipline system, the guardian of our customs and traditions of the military. But for me, and most importantly, I was there to represent the soldiers, to stand in front of them, to stick up for them and to protect them. And I can pride myself on doing just that. I've always stuck up for the diggers. Sergeant Major of any unit is also responsible for the conduct of our military funerals, responsible for ensuring that our soldiers who pay the supreme sacrifice are given a funeral steeped in the customs and traditions and the ancient ceremony that befits our soldiers' service and their life. And I've seen too many of them. I've seen too many funerals. Many as a result of suicide, and what makes this all the more difficult for me is the fact that, rightly or wrongly, you tend to feel responsible. After all, I was the one that was meant to look after them. I still, today, agonise with the notion that maybe I should have seen it coming. I should have picked up the signs. I should have stopped this. And these are memories and thoughts that I live with every day and that I live with every night. Deputy Speaker, I applaud our government's commitment to the mental health of our veterans and indeed all Australians. And I pledge today in the presence of my fellow veterans also elected to this place that I will continue to stick up for the diggers and our veterans. I want to make sure that they are reconnected to a family, to a new job, to a new way of life. I want all business owners and all employers right across the nation to know that employing a veteran is good for your business. Yeah. Deputy Speaker, service means a lot to me, and today I continue to serve as I represent the good people of Braddon in this place. Now, this is a daunting place, particularly for a beef farmer and small business operator from a small town called Laponia in Tasmania. But what gives me strength and reassurance, what strengthens my resolve today is the realisation that I don't stand here alone. Standing alongside me today is an electorate of more than 100,000 of the best people you'd ever see. Braddon is an electorate like no other. We are unashamedly honest, we are boisterous in our celebrations, we bind tightly when we feel threatened, we are scathing when we are wronged, and we can spot a phony before they even speak a word. Although down home we've got a different word for that. But above all, the people of Braddon are caring and they're generous beyond measure. I've always said that the further you get away from a big capital city, then the stronger the sense of community. And none is stronger than mine, my community of Braddon. This community protected me during the devastating loss of my wife to cancer. My little boy and I were nurtured by that community as they gathered around us. I couldn't have done it without them, and they are a wonderful family of farmers. Deputy Speaker, Braddon's farming families are amongst the best in the world at what they do. These are the farmers that got up at 4 o'clock this morning to milk the cows, who worked through the night to get the crops in ahead of the rain, and despite all that Mother Nature throws at them, they still roll their sleeves up and they simply get on with it. My patch is home to Australia's largest dairy, milking around 18,200 milking cows, who together with Tasmania's other dairies produce almost 11% of our nation's total milk production. Of course, it's not just in the dairy industry that we punch well above our weight. Our internationally sought-after seafood, like our salmon, our crayfish, our abalone, and as I speak, families right across the nation are tucking into our veggies. Our spuds, our carrots, onions, broccoli, peas, beans, cauliflowers, and if they aren't, then they should be. Our farmers are the best, but they're not boastful, and they aren't whingers. These are the quiet achievers. They contribute equally to their local communities and our nation's economy, and they do so without fuss or fanfare. They are the nation's true environmentalists. They care for their land, they care for their animals, and they are continually investing in adopting world's best practice. They deal with every challenge before them, but what they shouldn't have to deal with is extremist protesters who invade their farms, who endanger their workers and their families and their livelihoods. And I welcome our government's strong stance on the introduction of our Criminal Code Amendment Bill, which will make it an offence to encourage others to trespass, damage property or commit theft on agricultural land. I look forward to the support from both sides as we pass this important legislation through this place. Deputy Speaker, in my electorate is the town of Burnie. Burnie is home to our Makers Workshop. It's an interactive cultural hub celebrating Braddon's makers, innovators and artists. It's where you'll find Australia's largest hand paper mill. And right across our region, our makers are busy. They're manufacturing mining equipment at Elvingston's, undertaking defence industry contracts at Direct Edge and Penguin Composites. The Heritage is producing specialty cheeses. An award-winning whisky is made at Hellier's Road Distillery, gin at Southern Wild Distillery and vodka at Cape Grim on our far northwest coast. We like a drink in Tassie. Braddon is home to around 9,500 small businesses that are driving our economy forward. As a small business owner myself, I understand the enormous sense of pride associated with waking every morning and being in total control of your own destiny. I understand also the challenges and the risks that this stoic section of our community bear each and every single day. I understand what it's like to borrow too much money, to take on that extra employee, even though it means going without yourself in order to do so. Look, I get the burden of compliance and the levels of bureaucracy placed upon our small businesses. I'm all about small business, sole traders, partnerships, family trusts. Some call them the mum and dad's businesses. But when mum or dad is taken away from that business to deal with red or green tape, then that means that half that business has stopped being productive. It's not good enough. We need to give business the room to grow, to expand, to flourish, to employ more people and create more jobs. This is the right way, and this is the Liberal national way. Deputy Speaker, Tasmania's potential as Australia's renewable energy powerhouse is now recognised right across the nation. We have what the rest of the nation really needs: low-cost, reliable, clean energy. And the state is ticking all the boxes towards being 100% self-sufficient in renewable or clean energy by the year 2022. We have plans to deliver that energy through the rest of Australia through our second Bass Strait Interconnector, Project Marinus. This will allow Tasmania to expand the amount of renewable energy provided to our national grid and enhance greater investment in other renewable technologies, such as our $250 million Granville Harbour wind development, which is currently under construction on our west coast. Once complete, Granville will deliver 1/3 of our state's increase in wind power. And I thank the Prime Minister and the Energy Minister, Angus Taylor, for their commitment of $56 million to fast-track Project Marinus, as well as their commitment to work with the Tasmanian Government to underwrite the first phase of Tasmania's Battery of the Nation project. Braddon is indeed blessed with many natural wonders, amongst which is our unique freshwater lake system. Our first hydro power station was built more than a century ago, and hydro industrialisation has attracted industry, development and jobs right across our region ever since. Today, leveraging off the vision of our forefathers, the federal government is providing $2.5 million to support Hydro Tasmania in identifying a suitable Battery of the Nation project site. This represents the single biggest economic opportunity for our state, and importantly for those living on the north and northwest coasts. The 3 shortlisted sites are in our backyard. By the end of next year, we should know the final site, and the hope is to progress to being shovel-ready by the year 2021. This represents a multi-million-dollar injection into our region, as well as thousands of jobs. The opportunities for Bradden are fantastic, and I look forward to doing my part to drive that project forward on behalf of the people of Braddon, ensuring that the benefits are maximised within the communities right across the length and the breadth of our region. Deputy Speaker, Braddon is truly blessed, but I know that not everyone in my region is sharing in the good fortunes of our state. My region has its challenges. We're a rural electorate. We're made up of hundreds of small communities scattered across 8 local government regions. We are an ageing population, and I know that. Sadly, there are not enough opportunities in our region for those currently looking for jobs, and our educational and health outcomes are not yet what they need to be. There is work to be done. And to this end, there are people in my electorate that work hard and tirelessly every day. And I want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to every dedicated frontline service provider in my region, our educators, our health professionals, our first responders and our retail staff. They care so much, and they do it day in, day out. Although there's no simple, quick fix to the issue, I firmly believe that having access to the right type of education is important. It's important when you need it most. And I know, because I left school at 15 to become a farmer. It wasn't until many years later that I went back and finished my education. My dream for the people of Braddon, in fact all Australians, is that regardless of whether you live in the city or the bush, that if you have an aspiration, if you have a dream, then all that's placed in front of you are opportunities. And that this is true regardless of whether you are 10, 20, 50 or 90. My commitment is to be a loud, strong voice and representative for our region, and to ensure that our government fulfils its role in this regard. Deputy Speaker, when it comes to election campaigns, there are always more people to thank than there are time, and there is time. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge those who have gone before me. I acknowledge my predecessor Justine Kay, and the contributions she made to this position. To my Liberal colleagues who served as members of Braddon in recent times, and they all got behind me. Brett Whiteley, Mark Baker, Chris Miles, who was a member of the Opposition Shadow Ministry in the late 80s and early 90s, and Parliamentary Secretary to Prime Minister Howard in the late 1990s. And the Honourable Ray Groom, AO, a minister in the Fraser government and subsequently Premier of Tasmania. Each represented Braddon with distinction. I've got big boots to fill, but I'm going to work hard in doing just that. I acknowledge the support that I received also from my military family, especially Jim Molan, Doc Watson and Philip de Bomford, and I thank you for being here today. To our Prime Minister, I have no doubt that I'm here because of your leadership and the genuine interest that both you and Mrs Morrison showed to the wonderful people of Braddon. It was obvious to me from the start that you both cared. I could tell that straight away. But more importantly, the people of Braddon could tell that also. You and Mrs Morrison were a perfect fit. They got you and you got them, and so it went. And your interest in Braddon hasn't stopped now that the election has been run and won. It was just a couple of weeks ago that you were back visiting our psychology cafe in Latrobe, listening to the psychologists, watching the parents and their beautiful kids as they sought treatment. Our government is committed to making the mental health of Australians a priority, and you have demonstrated to my electorate that you were good to your word. And down our way, that's important. I recognise and I thank our National Director, Andrew Hurst. He was the general of our campaign. I was in awe of his capacities. He's a damn good human, and he's just another bloke that just gets it. To the Tasmanian Senate team, to Richard Colbeck and his staff for taking me under their wing, to John O'Dunion, Wendy Askew and Claire Chandler for your camaraderie and support throughout the campaign. And finally, a special thanks to Senator Erica Betts. It was you, Eric, who first convinced me to enter politics. Your faith in me and your ongoing support I will never forget. So thank you. And to the member for Bass and my good mate Bridget, I look forward to your company during the journey that's ahead of us both, and working together to do great things for our regions and Tasmania. To my state Liberal colleagues, ably led by Premier Will Hodgman, once again, thank you for your wonderful support. And a special mention to Office of Minister Guy Barnett, Tasmania's Minister for Primary Industries and Water, Energy, Resources and Veterans Affairs. It's got a bit on, this bloke, but he's helped me out no end over the last few months. To our State President Jeff Page, State Director Sam McQueston and his team at CHQ, thank you. To former State President Ian Chalk and his lovely wife Jenny, and thanks for being here today. I greatly valued your wise counsel and I respect you more than I have words. To Leon Perry, Felix Ellis, Rod Bramage, Tony Toenails Hine, Julie Thompson, Pat Darbyshire, Gary, Jeff and Nelson, and all the rest of the cast and crew who turned up in the rain, hail and shine and put themselves out. They worked tirelessly. We did it together, and I can't thank you enough. To Megan's mum Betty, you won't be getting any more mother-in-law jokes out of me. You were awesome during the campaign, and I thank you so much. To my own mother Beth, thanks Mum. You've always been there for us. Your advice is always grounded, carefully thought out and given with love, and I'm pleased that you're here today. To my sister Lynette, who unfortunately can't be here, I'm so proud of you and your tireless contribution that you make to the mental health sector over a lifetime in Tasmania. Thank you to my brothers David and Philip. And to my fiancée Megan, thank you. You have been my saviour. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. I was in a very dark place when we first met, and it takes a very special person to work through that. You are a remarkable person, Back then I didn't realise that you were also the best campaign manager that Australia has. No one did more on the campaign than you. With no campaign experience, you were unmatched in your drive, your determination, your professionalism. You understand the electorate, and even more dramatic, you understand me. You're a natural, and as everyone knows in this place, election campaigns take its toll on your personal life. All our plans were put on hold, but it's now time that we reinstate our plans, Megan. I love you, and I can't wait to continue our future together. To Hamish, my son, mate, I love you more than I have words. You and I have been through a lot together. You were just 8 when we lost Mum, and my beautiful Amanda Jane. I held you then, and I stood with you at her funeral, and we've stood together ever since. Mates do that, and we'll always be mates. I'm so very proud of the fine young man that you've become, and I know Mum's up there today, looking down on us both. I know she's proud. Hamish, you can be whatever you choose. You're already a leader in your own right. You're bright, you're enthusiastic, you're talented, but most of all, you're kind. You're compassionate. And you care. You understand what it's like to be knocked down, but, mate, you understand what it's like to get back up again. And sometimes you need mates to do that, because that's the Australian way. I love you, Hamish. Finally, there's my little princess Isla. When you were born, you represented a new chapter in our lives. You have the sweetest soul, and I want you to know that even though Dad seems busy most of the time, you're always in my heart, and I'll always make time for you. Deputy Speaker, I will conclude where I began, and those words of advice from Mr. Speaker.
It's all okay.
I pumped your tyres up before you've arrived. Mr. Speaker, I will conclude where I began, and those words of advice from General Cosgrave. As I spend time visiting the hundreds of local communities right across my electorate, listening to the constituents, I want them to know me not as a member who represents a bureaucracy, not as a person who tells them what they can't do, not as a member who puts up roadblocks or makes excuses. I want them to know me as their member who's telling them and showing them that they can achieve great things for themselves. They can achieve great things for their families, their communities, and indeed the entire electorate of Braddon. May it please the House.